Good morning. How is everybody? Good morning. This is my first time, so be kind, okay? So over the last few weeks, Pastor has been talking about the theme for 2024, which is intentional. And when he spoke about it on a Wednesday night, the one thing that kept coming to my mind was my 18 years that I worked in early childhood. See, to most people that would walk into a classroom, you would see shelves filled with toys, paint at an easel, sensory table filled with water, and a teacher playing on the floor with the children. What isn't seen is the intentional planning that went into that classroom setup. So first things first, we are not babysitters or daycare workers. Never call us that. We are early childhood educators, professionals, teachers. And to be productive in a classroom, it all starts with the lesson planning. Now, sure, some teachers might throw together a schedule that calls for a lot of free play or free choice. And sure, some days, especially during winter or spring breaks, our days would consist of just hanging out and playing in the classroom. But I will say those days dragged on, and the chaos in the classroom was magnified by 1,000. See, to have control of a classroom, there needed to be intention in the planning. So how was that done? In the state of Wisconsin, we use the Wisconsin Model Early Learning Standards, or we call them WEMLs. This consists of 5 domains: health and physical development, social and emotional development, language development and communication, approaches to learning, cognition, and general knowledge. Now, each of these domains have 3 subdomains, and within those are 2 to 3 performance standards, or goals. This is a 75-page document that educators have to use. See, we aren't just babysitters. These WEMLs were created so that there would be a standard of excellence across the industry. Last year, our theme was serving with excellence. We were tasked with giving our current ministry or position our all, to serve with excellence for the kingdom. Early childhood teachers are expected to use at least 1 standard per domain in their lesson, at a minimum. So how would we choose these standards to use? We would have to know our children. We would have to observe, document, push them to try new skills to see their abilities. Sounds kind of like our pastor, doesn't it? Observing our abilities and talents, encouraging us to step into new ministries. He can see the developmental milestones being reached, and he is nudging us to develop new skills. So, once we had an understanding of where the children were developmentally, we would then choose the standards that needed to be worked on. We intentionally set up the classroom to create opportunities for the children to explore, refine, and master certain skills. The teachers would come along the children and support them until they were successful. See, the classroom that had shelves with toys were actually activities that encouraged the children to engage in imaginative play, developing their communication skills, ability to share, take turns, and problem solve. The sensory table filled with water, that was helping child refine their hand-eye coordination. The paint at the easel was providing an efficient way to enhance shoulder stability, benefiting their writing skills further down the road. The teacher on the floor was listening to children's language development and introducing new words into their vocabulary. It was all intentional, all done with a purpose, so children could reach their developmental milestones and move on to the next class where they would be challenged again to refine their skills and push them to master new milestones. And that's the thing too. The standards or goals that were chosen for a lesson plan had to be developmentally appropriate. A baby cannot walk before they can even stand. First, they have to strengthen their head with tummy time, then roll over, sit up, scooch, crawl, and then finally walk. A goal has to have achievable and a measurable result. In 1 Corinthians 3:2, we read, "I had to feed you with milk, not with solid food, because you weren't ready for anything stronger, and you still aren't ready for anything stronger." What a slapdown. Paul did not sugarcoat it. He came right out and said what needed to be said. Despite being saved for a duration of time, the Corinthian Christians had not matured spiritually. The problem wasn't that they weren't Christians, nor had they been denied the opportunity to grow. They had access to the power of the Holy Ghost, but they simply had not abandoned their selfish ways so they could grow spiritually. In Romans 12:2, it says, "Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect." And that can be scary. Change is hard. Giving God total control to change your thinking and perspective is where the Corinthian Christians struggled. But part of growing spiritually is stepping out of your comfort zone. Hello. Choosing to participate in new ministries, to grow into leadership, to become a mentor. A child does not stay in the same classroom year after year, repeating the same activities. They are moved up into a new room where they are challenged, given the opportunity to refine their skills and develop new ones. I don't think our church needs milk anymore. We're ready for the next classroom, the next challenge. We are ready to move up. In the last few years, the church's programming has been intentional. We have been introduced to the concept of connect groups. I bring this up because I oversee them. So if you have an idea, come see me. Connect groups are described as an informal gathering of people outside church in a relaxed setting to become better acquainted with others who have similar interests and to let them see God through us. No strings attached. This is about relationships, friends. If we happen to develop a friendship with others and the relationship deepens, we might see God begin working in their lives and then suggest life groups or Bible studies, which gives them support to reach the next developmental milestone. Maybe we eventually invite them to church, and the moment they walk through the door, the groundwork has already been set by the intentional planning of our pastor for their spiritual development. The environment has been set up for exploration and growth to reach the next milestone. The goals have been developmentally appropriate. We have been intentional. Now, I'm no longer in early childhood. I now work for a biorefinery which makes ethanol, animal feed, and other byproducts from corn. My daughter calls me a corn farmer. In my short time there, I have learned that there are 4 components to a corn kernel: the hull, the starch, the germ, and the tip cap. 82% of the corn kernel's weight is starch. That's the yellow part. This is the most widely used part for fuel, sweeteners, and bioplastics and other products. It is the largest part of the kernel, the most easily visible, and the part that makes the kernel recognizable as a corn kernel. For decades, this was the only part that was used. The whole kernel would be ground up with no thought on how to use the other components. There was no attention given to the smaller components. It's not that they were lesser, there just wasn't someone there to see the potential. Are you connecting this to the church? It's easy to feel like you are in the shadow of the high visible roles, such as the worship team or Sunday school teachers. It's easy to feel like you're in the shadow of the high visible roles of a church and that you aren't valuable. But we have someone here who can see the potential of each person within this church body. Going back to Romans, in 12:3, it says, "Because of the privilege and authority God has given me, I give each of you this warning. Don't think you are better than you really are. Be honest in your evaluation of yourselves, measuring yourselves by the standard." Wemmels are in the Bible too. Be honest in your evaluation of yourselves, measuring yourselves by the standard of our God-given faith. Just as our bodies have many parts, and each part has a special function, so it is with Christ's body. We are many parts of one body, and we all belong to each other. In the 1980s, the idea of corn fractionation technology was introduced. In 1994, the final patents had been secured. But it wasn't until 2008 that the first commercial application was implemented in the ethanol industry. It took time to refine the process and make sure it was the most efficient technology. The process of corn fractionation technology separates the components of the corn kernel. The chemical researchers could see the value in every part. They became intentional in using every part of the kernel and saw the opportunity to diversify into new markets and saw exponential growth. The components that were once considered the least desirable are now the most valuable to the company. Did you hear that? They became intentional in using every part, and the components that were once considered the least desirable were now the most valuable. Every person in the church body is valuable. Every ministry in the church is valuable. Being intentionally intentional, you can become the most valuable component. The church has succeeded in the standard of serving with excellence in their current roles. Our teacher has intentionally created an environment for growth. It's time to move up and challenge ourselves in new roles. We need to value and use every part of our church body to take a leap of faith and step out of our comfort zone, because only then can we intentionally master the next spiritual milestone. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda, for